I have visited your beloved islands 14 times now. I journeyed to Honolulu in 2010 because I had taken 4 years off from my work at Edmonton Public to do my dissertation. And I had worked extensively in schools along some phenomenal students and teachers and leaders and had very rich data to mine. And I couldn't figure out what the data meant to me and what that would mean when I went back into school. So I came to Hawaii to present my findings at an international conference held here in January, and I was looking for answers and looking for feedback. And it came to me one day as I sat on the beach waiting for my family after a long day of writing and listening to speakers and getting feedback, that I saw a ship silhouetted in the distance. And I thought to a great extent about the principal ship and how the principal ship is really about wayfinding. It's that delicate balance, very much around Polynesian notions, those intuitive notions about wayfinding as a way to conceptualize our identity and our understanding, and how that differs from very technical navigation methods used by the Europeans in early times. And it is my time in Hawaii that formed my final dissertation chapter and has profoundly impacted the work that I will share with you here today. I represent our faculty, and it is my honor to be with you here today. I'm sure they would all like to be with you here today too, given the snow back home. But it is their work, it is not my work. And when I came back from Hawaii in 2010, I got a phone call from our superintendent at the time, and I had been appointed to the principalship of a brand new school that would open. And it wasn't just any school, it was going to be called Michael Strembitsky School. And what a great honor and a daunting task ahead to exemplify and live what Mike had established in his legacy. And so the story I share with you right now is about what empowerment looks like in practice with real kids and real teachers. So from the day I took on the principalship at Michael Strembitsky School, I was responsible for all operational and instructional facets of the school. This is not my school, it is our community school. And as such, I garnered the feedback of future students, parents, and teachers when we had just broken ground by gathering them together for focus groups to talk about our vision. What were their hopes and their aspirations and dreams for the children? What kind of education did they envision for this school and their community? And it was through that process that we discovered our vision would be about authenticity and learning and the sharing of the leadership in our school. Once we determined our vision, we knew the what. And through a very similar process, and from using the educational research, we determined the instructional and assessment processes, which gave us our how. As a principal, I was allocated a large budget to build a school, and I was held accountable for prudent fiscal management. I had full discretionary decision-making over every piece of furniture, every resource, every piece of technology that was put into that school. I decided where we would hang a tack board. I decided what the school website would look like. I met with our unions to talk about contractual obligations for our custodial and maintenance workers. But I am not an expert in any of this. Of course, I'm not an expert. I had to call upon the expertise of many individuals in central office who could help me find vendors and negotiate pricing and create efficiencies. They helped me ascertain the pros and cons of the different technologies that we might put into the building, and so forth. I depended on my colleagues from central office to inform the decision-making process. Undoubtedly, all of this managerial work was very important, but each decision I made was based on developing and sustaining our vision. And our vision really was focusing about cross-disciplinary learning and project-based learning approaches. And this would demand very different thinking about the kinds of resources we would need in our building. We chose not to buy textbooks. We moved away from thinking about resources as stuff. We put greater emphasis on community resources and people expertise. Instead of textbooks, we decided to hire a full-time artist-in-residence who works on the integration of fine arts alongside of our teachers every single day in our building. And when our school opened finally in 2012, at our peak we served 1,100 students within a fully inclusive setting. Jeremy talked about when you open a school you often hire to recreate yourself. I was smarter. I chose to hire people that were different than me, because I wanted to have people who would challenge, people who would bring diversity to our building. And so I had the opportunity to select all 70 teacher support, custodial, and exempt staff in our building. And I only had ever met 2 of those 70 people before in my career. And together we created a succinct framework that would guide what we believed was important to reconceptualizing teaching and learning in our building. At our school, we focus on 4 distinct areas that are premised on the notion that everything we do needs to build the capacity of the people who serve the children. So the first component of our framework revolves around the creation of organizational routines and artifacts. So one, very simply, is our timetable. One of the barriers to authentic and cross-disciplinary learning for us was our timetable. And we came to see that the very structure that was limiting our possibilities for teaching and learning was a structure that we had created ourselves. So we decided to change our timetable and create a common timetable for children from kindergarten to grade 9. And this would allow our teachers to work across divisions. This would allow children to work across classrooms. We no longer would define learning by the classroom in which a child hung their coat. Rather, children in our building move from one teacher or one classroom to another throughout the school day, depending on the needs of that learner, the expertise of the teacher, or the task at hand. How we use our time can change. Learning is what remains constant. In addition, we said goodbye to those long-range plans that we had written for years and years, and we empowered teachers to develop in teams, rather than as individuals, curriculum design maps. We asked them to go to the curricula and not get hung up on the minutiae of all the details, all the bullets and all the outcomes, but to interrogate the philosophical intent of the curricula. What are the big ideas? What are the big questions that drive learning? This allowed us to strategically position 21st century competencies and has created greater authenticity in learning. The second area that we have focused on in our framework is the building of collaborative structures. School improvement is a collective, highly collaborative knowledge building process. And we have identified relationships characterized by interdependence as absolutely critical to empowerment and ensuring sustainability of the changes we make. Every teacher is a leader in our building, and as such, each one participates on a design team. And each design team focuses on key facets of instructional practice in our building. And these teams vary from the integration of new technologies, to meeting diverse learner needs, to creating career pathway implementation plans. I am absolutely relentless on finding time for teachers to collaborate. That is what creates quality teaching and learning. Our teachers meet on a weekly basis, and as much as possible, I try to give them release time during the school day every month to work with their teams. This has been integral to creating a culture that is professional. A professional culture harnesses collective expertise, and a professional culture is about collective responsibility for the results. The third area we've targeted is professional learning, and Tommy spoke about this earlier today. Adult learning. Every Thursday after school, we engage in book studies, the reading of research, and in professional learning sessions, often led by our own faculty. We initially thought that professional development would be about learning all the things we needed to do in this new school together. And we were terribly wrong. The professional learning that has been most valuable for us has been unlearning. Unlearning and relearning. Our real work, we know, is about unlearning what we know and have always traditionally practiced in schools. The real work for us has been learning to interrogate what we take for granted and the status quo. Part of our professional development has also focused it on the understanding of the 21st century competencies. These competencies have required a huge shift for our teachers, from that of content delivery to a competency focus, or competency development. And competency development is less about knowing about something, and it's so much more about knowing how. And this strikes at the very core of what it means to teach. Where we once thought that we were experts and disseminators of information, we now see ourselves in our building as designers and architects of learning. So professional learning should always elevate the professionalism of teachers, and we do this through collective inquiry. When we're interested in something, we bring in all of the research, the books, the programs, everything absolutely out there on that given topic. And then we empower our teachers to look at that and to assess the merits and limitations of those materials so that we can create our own definition of that work. The fourth aspect of our framework is around finding an intentional focus on reflective practice. Finding tranquility in the context of our very busy lives and busy school days is not always easy. But we believe strongly that an empowered culture leverages reflective practice as a means to challenging both tacit and explicit assumptions, processes, and structures. Reflection underpins our learning at Michael Strembitsky. There are many distractors that our teachers face each and every day. And it is one of our primary responsibilities as a school leadership team to mitigate and negotiate that for our teachers. And we structure time with our faculty to very intentionally talk about what we need to continue to do, what we may need to adjust, and most importantly, what we need to stop doing. We can't keep adding to the plate of teachers. To realize the vision of what it means to be an empowered school within a dynamic context will require faculties to be courageous and intentional, because not only do we need to reflect individually and in our school teams, we need to open ourselves up to reflect with external stakeholders, just as you are doing here today. So what have we learned in our story at Michael Strembitsky School about empowerment? Well, we've learned that there are many, many stakeholders, as you can see on this screen, that subsequently influence the possibilities for school improvement. We have a deepened understanding that we cannot achieve our vision through a traditional, formal, one-person leadership model that would elevate me or any of you who are principals in this room to that of a heroic leader. That leaves the substantial talents of our teachers largely untapped. And we need to harness the collective power of our teachers. School improvement cannot happen to teachers. It cannot happen for teachers. It must happen with and by teachers. And so we see the problem of scaling up school improvement, whether it's in our school or perhaps in a system such as yours, to be one of capacity building and empowerment. Teachers are not at the periphery of this reform discussion. In fact, teachers are central to this work. Within the empowered culture of our district at Edmonton Public, I spend less and less time on operational and managerial aspects of my work. I choose to focus on instructional leadership, and I refrain from positioning my work as a dichotomy, an either or. I am not either a manager or an instructional leader. My work is very much about morphing. It's about oscillating on a continuum and trying to find that delicate balance between both of those roles, because both are important. This is a sample of what teaching and learning looks like back home. That being said, I would be remiss if I did not speak to the notion of assessments of teacher effectiveness and student learning. I am sure here that that is a highly contested debate, as it is back home for us. There are tendencies of scholars, practitioners, and policymakers alike to measure our results through student achievement outputs, which often means standardized test scores. I understand the importance of that data, I value that data, and I use that with our team. However, at our school, we believe that a narrow focus on such outputs may inadvertently exclude other criteria and possibilities for teaching and learning. As a principal, I use data to drive my decision-making, to provide public assurance. However, I question here today, and when I go back home, we will continue the conversation around how else might we provide evidence of high-quality teaching and learning in all of our schools. How do we show people that we are developing compassion and understanding in our schools and across borders? Might other measures of effectiveness include the sense of community you instill in your building, the level of parental involvement, the citizenry of your student body, the extent to which the teachers will be empowered to make decisions in the buildings in which they work? Our work, your work, is messy, complex, and it's ambiguous. And it just simply cannot be reduced to a test score. So my closing thought: whether you're opening a new school, such as the opportunity that I was privileged to have, or if you're looking at retooling and rebuilding a system, we are always confronted with a choice. The choice is, do we maintain the status quo, or do we take a risk and try to conceptualize every facet of teaching and learning, every facet of what we do as a means to empowering our schools and the people who serve the children? This conversation started today as a testament to your choice to take up a position around paradigm pliability. And having paradigm pliability requires having courage. Within a school-based decision-making framework as developed by Mr. Michael Strembitsky, I am fully trusted to be a leader. I have the freedom to determine what needs to be done because I know our local context best. There is no one size that fits all. Back home, I have the authority to do what is right, and I'm expected to engage all of our stakeholders in that work. I am held accountable for results, but I am supported when I need assistance. And I am trusted, and because of that trust, I am empowered. Mahalo.